Hey everybody, Breakthrough Health and Life Coach Glenn Hattem here. I'm here with my good friend Joey Gindi. He's a former client and good friend. He's also one of the leaders in the marijuana industry, and he's really making a difference and has a lot to share today. I'm eager to just jump right in, and if you got a pen and paper, you're going to take some good notes down from this conversation. Welcome, Joey Gindi.
What's up, Glenn?
How you doing, my brother?
What's happening, brother?
Well, I thought we'd start off by maybe telling a little bit about your role currently in the industry. You and I have been in different roles with one another in our working relationship and our friendship, and also just a lot of respect for what you're doing in your field as a businessman, as a father, and where you're going with leading this huge movement now with your industry. So maybe share a little bit about what you're up to these days, and then we can maybe we'll switch back to maybe how you got started. I think people want to hear that story as well too.
Yeah, so currently I'm a owner operator of 2 stores in Colorado, and my role currently in the company is I've taken a little bit of step back this last year out of operations, so I can just focus more on like working on the business and really refining what we do. So I guess a little bit of backstory. I know you just said you would ask that in the next question, but kind of makes sense to bring it up now. I've been in cannabis for 12 years, and it started out with like just a medical store in Louisville, and it evolved to 2 medical stores. And in 2014, 15, when the recreational movement happened in Colorado, we had an opportunity to rebrand. And so that's what we did. And a lot of our focus on the rebranding was really getting in touch with like why people use cannabis. What's the purpose behind their cannabis use? It wasn't so much the medicinal side. There's a ton of that, and that was obvious. That's why the industry got started, was because there was a medical component to it. But people weren't as much talking about like the recreational side, and how it's not just for having fun. It can actually be used. Cannabis can actually be used to help like enhance or support you in things that you love to do in your life. And so that kind of became our mission. And mostly what I'm doing these days is trying to figure out how to like craft our messaging and work on our marketing and work with my teams to really help deliver that experience to new consumers coming into the market. And so that experience being like, how can we educate and teach people how they can use cannabis in their own lives to support or enhance what they already love doing. So it's just like another wellness tool.
Yeah, just like for me, Joe, driving down the highway, I see the signs for your company, Joya, the highway sponsored by you guys. So yeah, we're pretty well known in this community here in the Boulder and Louisville, Superior, all the way up to Denver. And I know for me, like I've used these creams even that have helped with sore muscles, being athletic and running into situations that some of the tools that you guys provide are better than what's out there in other markets. So.
Yeah, people don't really relate to it as a tool, as a resource. I tell people like we're not in the cannabis business right now. Like we're in the people business, and cannabis just happens to be a product that we serve up to consumers. And it's really is just another tool. And you can find people that use it every day, morning to night, and you can find people that use it once a day or once a month, whatever it might be. And I think the beautiful thing is when you can start to look at it like a tool and just like a resource to support you in things that you love, you start to kind of change your viewpoint on it a little bit. Right. And might open your mind to like, all right, like how can this support you? And my role's getting people to see that, getting people to see how it might be able to work for them and support them in whatever they're up to.
Yeah, and how'd you get into this field? Like, what really drew you in? I know you and I in our meeting, I was working with your father, then your brother, and I know you were in business with your brother. I worked with all your brothers, but tell us a little bit about your story, because I think it's a really interesting one.
Yeah, I mean, I got into it. I just graduated from CU Boulder, and I was going to school for architecture. And when I graduated, just like a lot of people trying to figure things out, I had this degree, but I knew I didn't want to pursue a career in architecture. I kind of figured that out in my last year and decided to graduate and get the degree because I was so far along at that point. but I was trying to figure things out, working in a restaurant. My brother Sean called me one day and said he was opening up a store in Louisville, and he wanted me to come on board with him. And so it took me a few months to make that decision, but I made that decision in December of 2009. And that's how I got into the industry. I definitely never saw it as a career or something I would spend my life doing, or something that I always loved cannabis, but I wouldn't say I was passionate about cannabis.
Yeah.
It was just a product I used with my friends.
And here you are at the forefront. I mean, your brother, you guys were at the beginning of this whole march, the whole push for Colorado, and for other states following your lead. So
yeah, it was definitely at the beginning, and there was no enforcement division here in Colorado. It was just get your sales tax license and open up. And there was some regulation around like how much flower you could hold, and patients signing you on as like their grower essentially. So there were some regulations involved, but there was no real enforcement division. And back then it was, home growers bringing duffel bags of product to the store, bringing brownies or whatever it might be, for us to sell. And the way we figured out what to sell was by trying it. And so that was kind of like
West back then.
What's that?
It was the Wild West back then.
It was the Wild West back then. Absolutely. And there was no, there wasn't a lot of thought given to like what I was using. It was just kind of like, here's brownies, here's cookies, here's cannabis. Like, we didn't know the potency or the test results of these products. It was black market. Then it was kind of like became gray market with us. And if we liked the product, we sold it, and that was that. But that was like my first entry point into this industry. From the get-go, worked with lots of medical patients, and it was fascinating for me to see the broad spectrum of like life that walked through the door. You had everything from like 18-year-old kids who like had some legitimate medical issues to ones that just didn't. They just could get a medical card, so they did, and they liked to smoke. And then you had your business people, you had teachers and doctors, you had ex-law enforcement, you had people from all walks of life coming into shop for a variety of different reasons. And it was really cool getting to understand why people were coming in, what they were coming in for, why they were using these products. And for me, it had always been this thing, like, I just like to get high. But during that period of time, I really learned like people weren't just using it to get high, like they were using it to actually live their life. Like I didn't understand medical cannabis before I got into this space.
Right.
That was a new concept for me.
So here you are now, you're being influenced by all these other purposes, and it's like you can't help but not see what's available to you, and you're being changed by this.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it couldn't help it. Like I said, this using cannabis for medical purposes was just a new concept for me. And I thought people were full of shit when they would say they did use it for medical purposes. I didn't believe them.
I remember thinking that too, back in the days.
Yeah, and then I got involved in this industry, and over the course of 4 years, before it went recreational, I've taken thousands of patients, and really got to know my patients, not my patients, but patients that shopped in our store, and really got to know them and understand what they were using it for, and what products they liked and how they used it. And they were really using this product to like better their lives in one way or another. And then it kind of evolved. Like it wasn't even just about medical reasons and like the diseases or cancer or whatever people might have. Right. There was also a massive wellness component to it. People were just looking to use cannabis for different types of relief, whether that was anxiety and stress. Maybe it was not even relief. Maybe it was for creativity. People love to use it when they were doing art or doing things or exercising. Like I could never imagine before using cannabis to exercise.
Right.
And then here I am this week, before I went to the gym on Thursday, I smoked an Elevate strain for my store. And I went to the gym and I forgot I smoked. And it was a great workout.
Wow.
It was my chest day.
And I gave you a hard workout and it was a great workout. Well, that's good to know.
Yeah, and it was a great workout. Like this whole cannabis and exercise thing is new for me in the last probably 4 months. Was the first time I really started to explore that. But here I am, like, serving medical patients and then like recreational patients, customers on the wellness side, and really seeing like people are using cannabis for overall wellness in one way or another.
So let me ask you this, like you have your own personal experience of how, you used it and maybe could get almost wound up out of control to where it's not yielding the benefits.
Yeah.
And then you got this other side where it can be really helpful for one's wellness.
Yeah.
And somewhere, I guess, in your industry, you're watching people come in the doors and who's buying the product and how they're buying it, why they're buying it. And you're seeing probably these different groups of folks that some are benefiting and some are taking things a little too far, or you can see where you were at one time.
Yeah.
And I really love for you to, I think our audience would really love for you to speak about what you're wanting to see, wanting to create, and where things are going now with this new vision you're birthing, and that's being asked for by the industry. And you're charging out in front of everybody, and I think it would be just this would be the place to share it.
Yeah, I definitely see people coming in the stores. I'm not in the stores as much right now, but I've spent plenty of time there and seen lots of people that come in for wellness reasons, and some kids that just come in because that's what they know, right? Like they smoke weed or dab all day, every day. And that's just what they know. There's, and it's difficult, right? Because in this industry, there's a lot of people that use cannabis all day, every day, and they see nothing wrong with it. And I'm not one to tell them that there is anything wrong with it. Like, it's your life, like do what you want with your life. But when I started getting really real with myself in my own use, I started to delineate, like, there's two ways that I was using. I was either using cannabis to create something in my life, or I was using cannabis to sedate in my life.
Check out.
So I kind of coined this like creation versus sedation use. Okay. Now, I'll say that like sometimes like we're so wound up and stressed in life, and so, have a lot going on, whether, you own and operate your own business or not, you work inside of someone else's business, you might be married with kids, you might have health stuff going on. Like life happens and life's intense and it's a struggle for a lot of people. And sometimes sedating like is necessary. Right. Sometimes, and I used to be so against that. I used to be really against this, like, don't sedate, like that's really bad, like you shouldn't be doing that, you should be able to be grounded, all like, ground yourself without using substances and this and that.
It's pretty hard to do with probably as a parent 24/7. I mean, people sedate with whether it's Netflix or sugar, or something just to give them like, hey, I've gone all day and now I get that glass of wine at the end of the day, or I get a smoke that to get myself to stop spinning before I try to go to sleep.
And there's just like which is all fine, right? Like to a point. But for me personally, what I realized was, it was like when I would use cannabis to just like unwind and de-stress, it was almost like I would disassociate from the life around me.
Right.
And I would just smoke and I would like disassociate and I would just be high and I might be forgetful or spacey or whatever it might be. Because I wasn't really paying attention to like the strains that I was using and how much I was inhaling, or if I wasn't inhaling, like what kind of edible I was using, or what kind of cannabis went into that edible, and how much, what's the dosage that I'm taking. Like there was no real intention and focus around what I was taking, when, and how.
Or impact on your world. It was just like,
like there was a lot of times I'd come home from work, and I imagine a lot of people do this as well. Like a lot of customers or a lot of people out there, like they're stressed from work, they get home, they grab a strain, and then it doesn't matter necessarily which one, they take a hit or two or three, because they just want to like relax and like unwind from that day and settle in. And so I would do that, but then I would find like, I was just not fully present. I wasn't full, I was kind of spacey, or I was kind of had this like paranoia and self-conscious way of being that was happening to me, and I didn't like it.
So here it is. Here it sounds like you're trying to actually find a way to, in a certain sense, be present. Like I'm gonna let go of all the stress of everything and just be here now, but you weren't really here now.
Not always, no. Sometimes I would be for small pockets, but a lot of the times I wouldn't. I would just kind of get tired, and I would still be trying to get through the night or get through whatever it was. But I couldn't stop using it either, right? Like I found this weird, like kind of weird paranoid self-conscious experiences, but then I kept using the product. And so I started asking myself questions, like, why am I using this? If it's giving me this self-conscious paranoid feeling, like, why am I using it?
Right. So it's creating more anxiety. It's like, it's not really yielding what you're intending it for, but it's the only thing you know, and you just do what you know. And next thing you know, you're hooked in a cyclical pattern.
And that's kind of what was happening for me for a while. I was kind of hooked in that cyclical pattern, and I felt good. I did feel a little bit more relaxed, but psychologically it did something that I didn't love. And so it was difficult for me to figure out how to manage that. And that's kind of what set me on my path the last year and a half was, if I'm going to continue to grow inside this industry, and if I want to expand the way that I talk about it and the way that I want to, I need to really buy into what I'm creating. I don't want to just open up dispensaries and sell products where I know people could be having the same experience that I'm having, which is this like cyclical kind of pattern that's not necessarily positive in the overall picture of my life. It's not actually helping me move things forward and create and evolve.
So if you were like a client walking into your store and your new vision, like if you're being guided by a higher truth, what's possible for this new person coming into the Joya experience, a brand that is really, it's very well known here, represented well. What do you want possible for guys like yourself to come in and have, as far as a different kind of experience, getting educated and making smart choices, being, like you said, you're about people. It's like taking care of your people. What's that look like, for you, like what you want available? Because you've gone through some pretty significant trials and tribulations in your life that you've kind of come to a head with, like, here's what works, here's what doesn't work, and I got to remove things, people, things, anything that's toxic. I got to like replace those with things that are optimizing my wellness. What is it that you're seeing as possible now, and you trust that it's possible for people to experience?
I believe it's, so like I said, we're a people brand, and we're focused on cannabis right now. So I do see a future where we're talking about more than just cannabis.
Mm-hmm.
But right now, what I see is an industry where things are going to go one of two ways. Cannabis is just going to become something like alcohol, like another product in the marketplace that people use to escape life and sedate and kind of disconnect and disassociate. Or it's going to be used to help them create more of what they love to do in their lives. And so someone who shops at a Joya, the possibility that I see is them learning through proper education and guidance and having a well-rounded selection of sophisticated products available to them to help create very like intentional experiences using cannabis. So helping people find and select products that can really help them like enhance or support what they love to do already in their lives and use it in a very intentional way. So like an example might be, like today in the marketplace, I know people that eat, let's take edibles, for example.
Yep.
They'll eat anywhere from 5 or 10 milligrams of an edible. Milligrams is like the dosage that edibles comes in. Right. And they'll eat 5 to 10 milligrams, and other people eat 500 milligrams. Sure. And it's all across the board. Okay. Right. And for me, I used to be one of those 5 to 10, 15 milligram people. When I started focusing on using cannabis intentionally and seeking these results where I'm actually creating and enhancing and supporting myself and the experiences that I want, I found that like I don't need a whole lot. Like I want to, what I found was what's the least amount of product that I can use to give me the desired result.
Just kind of like the terminology people are using nowadays in the world of microdosing,
Yeah.
with mushrooms or other things
Yeah.
that are also in that.
It's exactly like that. So my first kind of journey on this in terms of my morning routine, I started to incorporate cannabis into it, and I'd incorporate 0.5, actually it's 2.5 milligrams. So I'd wake up and I'd take 2.5 milligrams, and I would exercise and meditate and journal and go through all of that process. And, that's like my morning routine for the first couple hours of my day. And I just found when I would use this product, like after I got off the bike, I just felt good. I just felt better. Like overall, my energy felt better. I felt present. I would sit down into a meditation and I felt great. I felt much more connected to myself and kind of the journey that I was on. And sat down into journaling, and I was more inspired and was able to create more inside of that space, that journaling space. Because inside of that, it's like I journal and reflect and then try to build like, all right, what am I doing today?
So this is versus somebody who like took five or 10, they're not even getting on the bike. They're not doing any journaling. They're just, bloop.
Yeah, they're just taking it. So now I'm starting to dial it in, right? So I started with 2.5, and I actually got a tincture that allowed me to drop that down even to 0.5, because I felt like 2.5 was almost too much.
So much. Okay.
And I started to dial it into like 0.5 to 1. So it's like this dialing in, right? So now like I'll use products like in that way that I just told you in the morning, a really low microdose. Or before the gym, I pick an Elevate strain from my store that I've found that I really like, that gives me energy. And I took one puff, but before, when I might take 2 or 3 hits off the bong or the pipe or whatever it might be, I take one, and it's very calculated, like it's smaller, like the flames on the lighter or the flames on the cannabis for half a second, and my draw is shorter. And I'm just telling you these details because that's what I'm talking about when I say using it intentionally.
Yeah. Well, I can relate to this because I've gone into a store before, and I'm not someone who does, smoke marijuana or eat marijuana or anything with marijuana. Like I said, I like the creams on my muscles, but I've smoked weed before. This probably leaves me a presidential candidacy, but I've gone in a store and I bought edibles, and usually the person behind the counter is like, what are you looking for? You're looking to go down at night, or you're looking to come up in the morning, or you're looking for something in the middle of the day? And what you're speaking to sounds very different. It's like that's the way the industry maybe has gravitated towards in catering to what people's immediate needs are, because they haven't been shown what's possible.
Yeah.
And you're talking about something very different.
Very different. Yeah. It's like when I use, even if I am looking to kind of unwind and relax, it's different than the sedation piece that I was talking about before, because there's also like in that moment, I'm like, all right, I want to relax, but what do I want to create inside of this relaxation? Do I want to create a connection with my daughter and be really present and into a moment with her? Do I want to be with my wife and get to watch a show and like be with her? I'm not just smoking to disassociate, I'm smoking to relieve myself of something so that I can be all in on this new thing.
I'm just picturing all these parents at the end of the day, and they're just blowing themselves out. And like, what if their kid falls and they got to drive into the hospital or something, crazy. And you're like, you've drank too many glasses of wine, or you've smoked too much weed.
Yeah. And it's all, you got to think about those things. Trust me, I've definitely had my moments where I've used too much of a product and I'm like, oh shit, like, I hope that nothing happens here. But that's also the point of being very intentional and thoughtful about how much you're using and what your body can handle. I could, smoke 5 rip hits off of something, and I could eat 10 milligrams of something. But I don't need to get the result that I want, because now that I'm focused on the results, I know what I need to get there, or what I want to get there. Right. If that makes sense. Whereas before I was just kind of taking something and going about the day.
I think it does. And I think it's hitting the audience as well too, hearing this, and inspired. And then I'm curious as to what steps or measures you're looking at taking with how you guys have done business, how the industry does business, how you're going to implement these principles, and that type of service to people that are just come in, in and out of your door, showing a driver's license,
Yeah.
and wanting to walk up to the counter and just buy their upper, their downer, and
Yeah.
how can they be re-educated and introduced, and how are you envisioning taking care of people?
It's a great question. I started out this call saying I kind of pulled myself out of operations to focus on this bigger picture stuff. And what we're talking about here is it's the way it looks to me. I'm still kind of trying to figure out, but there's a journey that someone goes on, right? There's a journey from either never using cannabis at all, or to being someone like me, maybe not as extreme, but where they're just using it almost habitually or without any real focus or intention. It's just to like de-stress. And there's a journey that they go on to get from like here to here, where they're using it in very thoughtful, intentional ways, very focused ways. They're using it for creation, they're using it for connection, they're using it for consciousness, they're using it in a variety of different ways that are very focused and intentional. And so there's a journey that they need to go on to get from here to here.
Right.
And what I want to build out is that customer journey. Like I want to guide people and take people on that journey. I mean, you can show up at a Joya to shop and buy your product, and you can get great guidance from our sales consultants on different products to use. You can have great conversation on how to use the products, even talk about some of the stuff we're talking about here to get people to think a little bit differently about it.
Mm-hmm.
But there's another level of service that I want to provide, where there's a lot more coaching and guidance and working with someone at a deeper level to help them figure this out. Whether that's a curriculum or a journey through an application where they can track different things, weekly check-ins or weekly calls. There's a lot of different things I've thought about and things that I want to build out, and we're just not there quite yet. But that is what I see in the future.
What I'm hearing is, if you can track it, you can manage it. So if there's some way that someone can go through a process, whether it's maybe in person with someone or via app, the whole idea here is you want to take care of your people. You want to educate them, empower them with the tools, the right tools, the right safe dosages to be in alignment with what their goals are at the time. You might have a goal that's partially, I got some stressful things going on in my life right now. And at the same time, if I can get more creative with my projects or my work, the other things, or my relationships, that's actually going to alleviate a lot of the stress. And so now my journey is changing its needs. And so now what are the adjustments there appropriately? Is that what I'm kind of hearing? So, okay.
Yeah, that's it, man. It's that journey and giving people the education, the resources, and the tools that they need to go on this journey for themselves. And it's not the same for everybody. It's going to be different for different people. Like, no matter how much people try to tell you that this product will give you this result, at the end of the day, it's too complex to be able to do that right now. Like the way that cannabis interacts with our bodies and our own endocannabinoid system, which a lot of people don't even know that we have.
Yeah. Can you explain that just a little bit?
Yeah, I mean, we have an endocannabinoid system, which is a major system inside of our body that runs from head to toe, and it helps create homeostasis inside of our body. So it helps regulate all of the other systems inside of our body, our digestion, our immune, whatever it might be. It helps regulate all of that. And your body actually produces endocannabinoids, and which are where the name in cannabis came from. Cannabinoids, THC and CBD and CBN, and all of those came from the reason why they came up with cannabinoid was because it mimicked the endocannabinoids inside of your body. I might actually have those reversed. I think cannabis cannabinoids were discovered, and then the endocannabinoid system was discovered in like the 80s or 90s. So this discovery is really not, if you look at it, not that it's pretty new. And so if you kind of imagine like your body produces endocannabinoids, and it has these receptors that they connect to, and it creates this experience inside your body. Like cannabis cannabinoids connect to those receptors inside of your body.
And just trigger.
And it creates an experience inside of your body. But there's so many moving parts to it, right? Like you don't know if your endocannabinoid system is deficient in some way. You don't necessarily know like how much the terpenes inside the cannabis are affecting the different systems inside your body as well.
Yeah.
So it's just, there's a lot of moving parts.
So that's right. Someone's going to respond very differently.
Exactly. And it can be, and people will respond differently, they'll respond similar. And there's some like, we can guide people on the journey based on the information that we have today. But because it's been illegal for so long, there's just hasn't been enough research, scientific research to really say like, all right, this is going to do this. And I don't know that you'll ever get there with maybe with isolated cannabinoids and isolated terpenes and isolated, formulations like that.
Yeah.
But if you're just taking like a cannabis plant that grows, it's filled with hundreds of different cannabinoids and terpenes that are all interacting when you burn it and then go into your body, and it's interacting with your own endocannabinoid system. There's just so many factors. Now, with that said, I do think that we're getting to a point like just based off of how long the industry's been around and how many people have tried these products that we can guide people and say, look, for a lot of people, they get this kind of experience.
You're starting to know now the formulas, whether it's edible or smoked, vaporized, whatever, like that. People are starting to, there's a lot more science now at the forefront of things.
There's more science, and even more than that, there's just a lot more experience. Like there's a lot more people, there's a lot of anecdotal data from people's experiences that can really help guide people.
Well, I think this is probably a good place to cut us off for today, but I want to invite you back for another conversation here down the road here shortly, just because I know you're moving at lightning speed with this vision, and it'd be great to check in with you and hear the progress you've made and what's being birthed. But it's just been, it's been a pleasure as a brother, fellow traveler on the journey with you. Like I said, I've been in the role of coach with you, but I've also been a student with you. I've learned tremendous just from sharing space with you and energy. And I'm just really excited about how you're really leaning into your truth and what is a truth for a lot of people. And it's amazing it's going to be amazing to see and experience what Joy right in our backyard here is going to be doing in the local community. And I know you also are a big influencer with, because a lot of other states are in the Wild West still, that you're definitely someone that people reach out to for advice. So I just have tremendous amount of respect and appreciation, and I just keep learning from you every day, and it's inspiring what you're up to, and I think the viewers probably got a lot from today's listen in, and we'll be listening in for the next time you're a guest. So
right, well, yeah, pleasure to be here, and thank you so much, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Joey. Appreciate you. Thank you, everybody.